Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right in life, going to work, paying your bills on time, not blowing money on anything crazy, and yet somehow your bank account never actually moves? You check it on payday, it looks okay for about 4 days, then it slowly bleeds back down to almost nothing, and you have no idea where it went. Well, here's the part that might actually make you angry. The average person in that exact situation is only about $100 a month away from completely changing their financial trajectory over the long haul. Not $1,000. Not $10,000, $100. To put that in perspective, the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows the average American household drops over $300 a month just eating out. That $100 is literally just the takeout you don't even remember ordering. I'm going to show you the real math behind that number, why almost nobody takes advantage of it, and exactly how to make it work starting this week. If that sounds useful, stick around, and consider subscribing. This channel is entirely built around turning small, boring decisions into life-changing outcomes. Let's start with a number that should stop you in your tracks. According to recent data from Bankrate, a staggering 56% of Americans say they could not cover a surprise $1,000 expense using their savings alone. Not a new car, not a vacation. A single unexpected expense, like a transmission repair or an ER copay. If you're like most Americans, you've probably lived through some version of this. Maybe it was a $400 dental bill that showed up out of nowhere, or your car needed new brakes the same week your phone screen cracked. You didn't do anything wrong. You just got caught in the gap that most people live in, the gap between what comes in and what goes out, with nothing left over to absorb a shock. Here's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't only happening to people who are struggling. It's happening to people with steady paychecks, decent apartments, and a closet full of clothes that still have tags on them. Income and wealth are not the same thing. In fact, recent consumer reports show that roughly half of Americans making over $100,000 a year are still living paycheck to paycheck. You can earn 6 figures and still be financially fragile if every dollar has somewhere to go before you even see it hit your account. This is the exact moment many people get stuck, and here's why. The financial world has convinced most people that real investing requires a windfall, a big bonus, an inheritance, a stock tip from a rich uncle. So people wait. They tell themselves, once I get that raise, or once the car is paid off, or once things calm down. Meanwhile, years pass, and the waiting itself becomes the habit. So why does this matter right now, specifically? 3 things are working against you simultaneously, and none of them are slowing down. First, the massive inflation spike we saw over the last few years pushed the cost of everyday life, groceries, rent, insurance, so high that it wiped out the extra money people used to casually save. Second, we are surrounded by more spending temptation than any generation in history. One-click checkout, subscription services that auto-renew without asking, and algorithms literally engineered to catch you at your most impulsive moment. Third, and this is the one nobody talks about enough, every single year you wait to start investing is a year of compound growth you can never get back. Not make up later. Gone. Permanently. That third point is the whole engine behind this video, so let's sit with it for a second. According to the FDIC, the national average interest rate on a checking account is basically 0, less than 0.1%. So money that just sits there isn't resting, it is, in a very real sense, quietly losing its purchasing power every year to inflation. But money that goes into a long-term investment account doesn't just sit there, it goes to work. It buys tiny slices of real companies. Those companies grow, pay dividends, reinvest profits, and over time, your original dollars start producing more dollars without you doing anything additional. This is where compounding enters the picture, and I want to explain it in the simplest way possible before we get into real numbers. Imagine you plant a single apple seed. Year 1, you get a small tree. That tree eventually produces apples. Some of those apples contain seeds you plant again. Within a few years, you're not managing one tree, you're managing an orchard, and it happened almost entirely on its own. Powered by time. Your money behaves exactly the same way when it's invested consistently. The problem is that the first few years of any orchard look unimpressive. A few small trees, not much fruit. Most people quit right there, convinced the whole thing is a waste of time, right before the orchard would have exploded into abundance. That is precisely the trap we're going to avoid in this video. I'm going to show you, with real numbers, what happens when you commit just $100 a month to this process, why the vehicle you choose matters enormously, and the specific mistakes that quietly sabotage almost everyone who tries this. By the end, you'll understand exactly why this one habit, started today, not eventually, has the potential to put you in a financial position most people will never reach. Before we get to the exciting part, I need to walk you through where this strategy usually goes wrong, because the math only works if you avoid these traps. Pitfall number 1. Chasing the exciting investment instead of the boring one. This is where I used to fail constantly. Early on, I wanted my money to feel exciting. I'd hear about some hot stock everyone online was talking about and think, This is how people actually get rich fast. The mistake most people make right here is treating investing like entertainment instead of a system. A low-cost, broad market fund, something like a total US stock market fund or an S&P 500 tracking fund like Vanguard's VOO, isn't thrilling to talk about at a dinner party. But it doesn't need to be thrilling. It needs to be consistent, diversified, and cheap to hold. For context, VOO has an expense ratio of just 0.03%, meaning it costs you a tiny fraction of a percent to own it all year. Boring is the point. Boring is what actually compounds. Pitfall number 2, confusing dividend income with guaranteed income. A lot of new investors get excited about dividend-focused funds because the payouts feel like free money landing in the account every quarter. And funds like a dividend-focused ETF can absolutely play a healthy role in a portfolio. But too many people load up entirely on dividend payers, assuming a high payout automatically means a safer or smarter investment. It doesn't. This is what the industry calls a dividend trap. Unlike the interest on a bank account, a stock dividend is not a legal guarantee. A company's board of directors can cut it overnight if business slows down, and chasing yield alone often means accepting slower long-term growth in exchange for a check that isn't as reliable as it looks on paper. Pitfall number 3, trying to time the perfect entry point. This one is sneaky because it disguises itself as being smart with your money. People wait for the market to calm down, or for a dip, or for some expert to say it's the right moment. Here's the problem: nobody, including professional fund managers with entire research teams, can consistently predict short-term market movement. In fact, standard Wall Street data shows that over a 15-year period, roughly 90% of actively managed funds fail to even beat the basic S&P 500 index. Waiting for the perfect entry point isn't caution, it's procrastination wearing a suit. Pitfall number 4, treating your investment contribution as optional. This is the quiet killer. Someone commits to investing $100 a month, and then the first tight month happens. A birthday gift here, a car repair there, and the contribution gets skipped just this once. Then it happens again next month. 6 months later, they've contributed twice out of 6, and they conclude the strategy doesn't work, when really, they never actually tested it. The fix for all 4 of these pitfalls is the same, and it's a strategy officially known as dollar cost averaging. It is almost embarrassingly simple. You automate the contribution the exact same way your rent or your phone bill is automated. Put it into a diversified, low-cost fund, and then, this is the hard part, stop watching it every day. Now that you know what not to do, let's talk about what actually happens when you do this correctly, because the numbers are about to get very interesting. Let's build a scenario that's realistic for a lot of people watching this, not a fantasy, not a worst case, just a normal starting point. Let's say you're able to open an account with $2,500 to start. For context, that is slightly less than the average American's yearly tax refund, so it is highly achievable. From there, instead of thinking monthly, let's think weekly, because $50 a week feels far more manageable to most budgets than watching $200 leave your account all at once. That $50 a week works out to roughly $2,600 a year in new contributions, on top of your initial $2,500. Let's run this through a broad market fund growing at an average annual return of 9%, a highly realistic assumption based on the historical performance of the S&P 500, assuming you automatically reinvest your dividends. After 10 years, your total contributions, your initial $2,500 plus your weekly $50, add up to roughly $28,500 out of your own pocket. Your account balance, thanks to compounding, approximately $47,000. You've already outpaced your own contributions by over $18,000, and you haven't even reached the powerful part of the curve yet. Now stretch this to 25 years, still well within a normal working career if you start in your late 20s or early 30s. Your total personal contributions come out to around $67,500. Your account balance, this is where it gets almost hard to believe, approximately $270,000. Let that sink in. You personally put in $67,500 across 25 years. The market did the rest, generating over $200,000 that came from nowhere but time and consistency. But here's the real revelation, and it's the part most financial content completely skips over: what happens in the final stretch of this timeline. If you extend the same $50 a week habit to 35 years, someone starting at 28 and reaching 63, a completely normal retirement runway, your personal contributions land around $93,500. Your account balance explodes to somewhere in the neighborhood of $640,000, depending on the exact sequence of market returns. Here is the fully upgraded final section. I have applied the math corrections, fixed the portfolio construction, woven in the Roth IRA, and added a strong YouTube CTA at the end. Now here's the number that should genuinely shift how you see this. Once a portfolio like that is fully built, a modest 4% annual withdrawal rate would generate roughly $2,100 a month in retirement income. This is based on the famous 4% rule, a strategy designed by financial planners to ensure your money outlasts a 30-year retirement, even through market market crashes. Build the habit a little earlier, contribute a little more as your income grows over the decades, and that same framework can realistically be pushed toward the $4,000 to $6,000 a month range that changes what retirement actually looks like, the difference between rationing your remaining years and actually living them. Let me introduce you to someone I'll call Maria, a composite of a lot of people I've spoken with over the years. Maria was 29, working as a dental hygienist, making decent but unremarkable money. She didn't get a massive raise. She didn't inherit anything. What she did was sit down for one Sunday afternoon, cancel 3 subscriptions she'd forgotten she was paying for, switch her car insurance provider, and redirect the difference, just under $50 a week. But she didn't put it in a normal taxable account. She opened a tax-free Roth IRA, so the IRS couldn't touch her future growth. She bought a low-cost S&P 500 fund, and a smaller allocation of an international ETF for actual global diversification. She didn't check the account daily. 5 years in, market volatility knocked her balance down noticeably, and she almost stopped out of fear. Instead, she kept the automation running. She wasn't trying to time anything. She was trying to own something, consistently. As her income grew over the years, she aggressively avoided lifestyle creep. She bumped that $50 up to $100, and eventually $150. By year 15, her account crossed 6 figures, and something shifted psychologically. That's the acceleration phase, not a lucky break, just compounding meeting patience. Imagine finally having control over this part of your life, not hoping a lottery ticket saves you, not depending entirely on a job you might lose, and definitely not crossing your fingers that Social Security alone will be enough. Imagine checking an account and watching it grow by more in a single strong month than your original weekly contribution used to be for an entire year. That's not a fantasy reserved for people who earn more than you. It's mathematics, applied patiently, to an amount most people wouldn't think twice about spending on takeout. If this broke down the wall for you, hit the like button so this video can reach someone else who needs to hear it. And if you want to know exactly how to set up that Roth IRA step by step, make sure you subscribe and click the video on the screen right now, where I walk you through the entire process. I'll see you over there. Let's bring this all the way back to something simple, because I don't want the numbers to overwhelm the message. You don't need a finance degree. You don't need a windfall. You don't need to correctly predict where the market goes next month, next year, or ever. What you need is a small, consistent contribution, placed into a diversified, low-cost investment, left alone for a long period of time. Here's exactly what I want you to do this week, not someday, this week. Step 1. Open a tax-advantaged account, like a Roth IRA, if you qualify. Any major U.S. provider like Fidelity, Schwab, or Vanguard works perfectly. They are safe, and they all offer zero commission trades and no account minimums to get started. Step 2. Choose one broad, low-cost fund to start, something tracking the total U.S. market or the S&P 500. You are not trying to pick a winning stock. You are trying to buy a small piece of the entire economy and let it grow with the economy. Step 3. Find your $50 a week, or your $100 a month, whichever framing motivates you more. Go back to Chapter 3 if you need to. Audit your subscriptions, call your insurance provider, look at what's leaving your account automatically. The money is very likely already there. It's just currently going somewhere else. Take control of it today. Thanks for watching, and welcome to Puck Invest. I'll see you in the next one. Step 4. Automate the contribution so it happens the exact day your paycheck lands. In the financial planning world, this is called paying yourself first, and it ensures you invest before you have the chance to spend it on anything else. Step 5. Stop checking it every day. Check it quarterly, at most. The people who succeed with this strategy are the ones who let it get boring. I know it's tempting to think this doesn't apply to you, that your situation is somehow different, more complicated, or too far behind for this to matter. I gently push back on that. The math we just walked through doesn't care about your excuses, and it doesn't care about your starting point either. It only cares about 2 things: consistency and time. You control both of those, starting today. If this video gave you a clearer picture of what's actually possible, do 2 things for me. First, subscribe, because I'm building out a full series that walks through exactly how to choose funds, how to think about risk as you get closer to retirement, and how to avoid the tax mistakes that quietly cost new investors thousands of dollars. Second, drop a comment below telling me one subscription or expense you're going to cut this week to fund your first contribution. Writing it down publicly makes it far more likely you'll actually follow through. You've got the tools. The math works. The only variable left is whether you start today or whether you're still watching videos like this one 5 years from now, wondering where the time went. Let's build your financial future. Thanks for watching Puck Invest, and I'll see you in the next one.